Hello, we're with Simona. Simona is dressed in this uh, festive costume from the Carnival of Venice. Why? Because in Venetian culture, centuries ago, the mask was a way to do things, say things, have liberties in masquerade, and without having any judgments, and be able to live without being judged and be able to participate in activities that your social class will not let you. But also confessions, and that's what it's going to be. This is the first episode of Masquerade Confessions and Venetian style, and we're talking Simona. At least that's the name she's given herself to tell us her story. Hello, Simona.
Hello.
And Simona is going to tell us some of her secrets that she's chosen to tell us in the same Venetian or in this masquerade Venetian fashion. So I'll let you tell the audience what you wanted to say.
Okay, so my story starts off about 2 years ago. I was living in my apartment that I had recently gotten during the summertime, right after I was working a subcontractor job for the government. And this was my first place on my own after my divorce. And after I had lost my government job, I spent about 6 months in unemployment, and I was sitting on a couch similar to this, and I was applying for jobs, and I was smoking some weed because I used to smoke weed, and I was like, you know what, I gotta get out, I need to stretch my legs, this has been depressing, I'm applying for too many jobs. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go outside, there's some neighbors that are sitting outside, they're smoking some cigarettes, I'm gonna ask them if I can buy a cigarette off them. So I go outside, I see these neighborhood folk, never met them before, and I asked them, hey, can I buy a cigarette off of you? And they said, sure, that's fine, but you can have it. I was like, oh, that's nice, okay. So I grab the cigarette, I light it up, I smoke it. Little did I know, it was laced with PCP, also called on street terms, sherm.
Could you tell us what PCP does? Maybe people don't know what that is.
It's not a psychedelic, it's not a party drug. As I would describe it, you make it from ingredients from underneath your bathroom or kitchen sink. It's something that you would create like in a lab, but it's like chemicals. It's not normal things that you would put in your body. So in today's world, when you see people losing their mind on the corner of the street or in downtown and people walking around like zombies,
What's that? What's happening?
this is Sebastian. Hi, babies. He loves me and he was there for me, so he knows that the story is a little hard. So yeah, when you see people that are not like, taking ecstasy or MDMA, like those are party drugs, and you have a come down from that. It's not a psychedelic. You're not opening up your third eye or anything. These are drugs that make you lose it. You're on a different wavelength, a different planet. And biologically, in my family history, my birth mother was a drug addict. So me mixing with those types of drugs actually has a horrible effect. And I ended up having a psychotic episode from consuming this type of drug. So I remember smoking it, and next thing I knew, I was in the backyard of this trap house that used to be there, and I was in the backyard, and I was higher than a kite, And I was laying down, and I thought I had reached outer space. Like, I felt like I was in a different dimension, and I was having some sort of like experience in my head, where in my head I was experiencing some sort of reality, but obviously from the outside I was completely gone. The next memory that I have, I was inside of my house in this condo, and there was a guy, because I had my purse on me at the time, and in my purse was my keys, my phone, my wallet. That's how they were able to get inside. I was so far gone, I didn't even understand or had the wherewithal. I was so high that they were able to come inside. So they used my keys to get inside. And the memory that I have, I was on my bed. And I didn't realize this at the time, but I was being raped. And I think for someone who was experiencing trauma in the time, in order to process that I was physically being assaulted, I had to go to a happy place, something that made me feel like I wasn't actually experiencing what I was in reality. So in my head, my happy place was, oh, you're a Bond girl, and this guy is on top of you, and you're trying to do this with him so that you can get information out of him, so that people can be safe. So I had to literally go to a place outside of my own self to feel comfortable, I guess, in the situation.
You create a fantasy to cope and not to panic.
Right. The next thing I know, I had passed out, and when I woke up, the guy that raped me was carrying a box that I had in my closet, and it had money, weed, jewelry, valuables. And he said, "Can I take this?" And I was like, "Huh? I don't know. Okay." And then I crashed on the bed again, and when I woke up, he was gone. Everything in my house was gone. Everything valuable that I ever owned. From books, my senior thesis, I had one copy of a photo portfolio that I created. I actually created a self-published book in college, and that was gone. Can't get that copy back.
Oh no.
Money, clothing, my TV, phones, they went through all of my drawers. I mean, anything that could have been valuable was gone. I had just gotten 2 podcast mics. I wanted to start doing podcasts. Those were taken. Anything you can think of was gone. So when that happened, I was left stranded. Now I'm high, without a phone. Didn't know who to call because I'm out of my mind. I didn't know how to process any of this. I was in a different dimension. I didn't know if I was going to come back to reality. This was, as far as I knew, my new reality. So I put on some hiking boots and I walked out into the streets of Long Beach, and I got like halfway to the Queen Mary. And I'm walking around. I think I was gone in my head mentally, so I didn't really have a place to go, but I was walking and walking and walking and walking. I didn't have water or anything. I wasn't really thinking about it. It's not like it was planned. And so I see a guy in a car, and it was a beat up car. I remember it had fisherman poles sticking out of it. It kind of looked like a hoarder's car. It looked kind of like a Supra or something like that, like an old 80s, 90s car. It was the first car I saw, and I said something like, "Hey, I live half a mile that way. I'm tired. I can't walk anymore. Do you mind taking me home?" "Sure, come on, get in the car." Well, it was one of those typical situations.
Right.
Where it's like how the one car that I saw is the one car that you were not supposed to get into. And from there, I remember thinking, like in hindsight, I was like, how did I get drugged again? I kept picturing someone like hitting me in the back of the neck with like a pygmy dart or something. I was like, how was I being drugged? But I later found out that they were giving me drinks, offering me beverages, and they were adding GHP, which in street terms is the date rape drug.
Who was giving you? How were they doing that?
So they offered me a drink in the car.
I see. They have that in there too.
Mm-hmm. So all I remember was I was in his car. Flash forward. So I passed out several times. Could have been from trauma, could have been from the drugs, could have, many different reasons. But for some reason, when I'm drugged, I pass out. So next, I'm in the car. Next thing I know, the next memory I have, I wake up and I'm in a penthouse on Ocean Boulevard. And I say coincidentally, right across from the building on the same block is the police station. When you talk to victims of sex trafficking, a lot of them do not talk to cops because oftentimes cops are in on it. And in my opinion, you can't have trafficking going on the same block of a police station and not know what's up. So I'm in this penthouse and I can see all the ocean, all the buildings in the background. It's a very fancy building. It's like 900 West Ocean or something like that. There's like two buildings that look identical and it has like this crazy parking structure. And this place, no one was living there. It almost looked like it was used for storage or trafficking. One of the guys, I believe, was working security there. He was wearing an Allied Universal jacket on. So my assumption was this guy was working for the building, therefore he had keys, he had an empty room, he had a place to put people. These are just the memories that I have. But I was in a camping chair, like one of those like foldable chairs that you would take to a stadium. And I was sitting similar to how I am now. My hands were like this when I woke up and I was sitting in the chair. And I look at my hands and I'm like, I can't move. Why can't I move my hands? Why am I sitting in this chair? Why can't I move my body? Somehow they were able to drug me again. I don't know how that happened. But I can see everything. I was just paralyzed. My whole body was paralyzed. And there were two men in that building, in that room. This was around Halloween time. I remember my birthday's October 23rd. Halloween was around the corner, so people were dressing up. People had costumes. But what made the memory a little bit more scary was that this guy had a skeleton mask. And so I saw this man in front of me put on a mask. And then he starts creeping on over to where I was sitting.
Oh,
and I was sitting here watching this man
and you couldn't move.
Come towards me and I couldn't move. And I knew that whatever he was about to do was not anything I wanted to be a part of. So in my brain, I went to, I guess you could say, a survival tactic. And I said, well, how do I try to make myself as unappealing as possible so that this guy won't want to touch me? So I told him, I said, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm gonna pee. If you don't let me go right now, I'm gonna pee right here, right now. And for some reason, he didn't mind that. In fact, he seemed a little turned on. And so I said, you don't believe me? You don't believe me? I'm gonna pee right now. And so I tried to force myself to go to the bathroom to be as disgusting as possible so that he wouldn't touch me. And he took off my pants. And I started to pee. And then he put his head down and he
Drunk?
drank from me and ate me out.
That's horrible.
And I don't know if I was raped. It's not the memory I have. I think he was just, what it felt like was he was playing with me. I was his toy. I was his subject. And he was taunting me like I was his doll. I actually got an impression. I don't think he liked women, or maybe I wasn't his type. And I tell myself that as to why I wasn't raped. But he kept,
Just before we go on, I may be a little too late to mention this, but for the audience that some of the subject matter of your story could be a little bit, it's already pretty intense. But for anyone who has any experiences of, let's call it abuse or maltreatment or anything related, just a fair warning. We're a little bit beyond that point, but I'm sure there's more to the story that you want to say. I think it's going to be pretty intense, perhaps a little graphic. I just want to give a warning what we're talking about, and the audience and as well as me, we appreciate everything that you're saying, and that hearing your outfit is giving you the channel, the ability to express yourself and open up something that you've been holding for a long time. I imagine it must be very difficult to do. And I can hear how through your mask your it's difficult for you to do this, but at least with your outfit you can open up and tell the story you've been holding for a long time. But
and I appreciate this to you because I've wanted to share this story. I've wanted to make a documentary about it and expose what happened to me and how someone can kind of fall through the cracks, but I've thought about it. How would I put my face on camera with how people troll on the internet and people can talk such negatively to you in the comments? And obviously you're going to get people that are like, that wasn't true, or that didn't happen. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't believe victims. That couldn't have possibly happened to you. Just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And that's just the reality and the nature of the world. And so having an opportunity to be like this, I can talk freely. So thank you.
yeah, and we're just kind of following some of the Venetian tradition, and as I mentioned that it allows you to say things that without the outfit you couldn't say. Anyway, as we go on, are you okay when you take a break, or you carry on? Okay, you can continue, please.
So I think the scariest part about the memory was the guy felt the need to put on a mask. I already saw his face, but he wanted to put on a mask. That was his persona that he wanted, was to put on this scary skeleton mask, which, I had a skeleton eating me out as I peed all over him. It was grotesque. I mean, if anyone had a fantasy of golden showers, this was not it at all. And so after that happened, you know, I talked to my therapist like a year or two about it later, and she said, trauma, you know, you can get through such an intense trauma that it can make you pass out. You can pass out from something being so intense that your brain just has to shut it down, shut it off. And I mean, I can't even stress how many times I passed out. So I don't know if there is even more that happened, that I blocked out. But these were the intense moments and what I actually remember. I don't want to know what happened to me all the times I passed out. You can guess, you know. So the next thing that I remember after he did that was, it's weird that I have fragments of it, but it's almost like the GHP started to wear off. I don't know if the guy went away to wash up or something, but I managed to be able to get up, and I head towards the door, and I was able to escape. I don't remember the hallways. I don't remember going down any stairs or elevators, but the next memory that I have was I was in the parking structure of the actual penthouse. And I bike and run down there all the time, and it freaks me out when I go there, because this is a multi-million-dollar property. It's probably $3,000, $4,000 for a studio. I mean, these people have money. It's this very lavish parking structure. It's all gated up, and you have to have special access. And the wall, I remember the gates that lift, they're really loud and really like ironclad, and they go whoosh, 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 and they lift up, and that's how cars go in and out. And I mean, it's this very kind of like ritzy industrial kind of place. So here I am on the balcony of this parking structure, and I remember a guy in an Allied Universal jacket and golf cart driving towards me, like trying to stop me, and I was trying to get away from him. That's why I assume it was security. I don't know.
But what time was it? But what time was this?
This was afternoon. This was in broad daylight.
Broad daylight.
This was during the day.
Do you know? And I assume you have no recollections how you left the room where the guy had you.
I have no idea how I got out. I really don't. But I had remembered what just happened to me, and I knew that, yes, I could have ran to my house, but I was in no condition to do that. The first thing I thought of was, you need to call for help.
And you didn't have a phone because it got stolen already, right? You had.
I had nothing on me.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could do, and I mean, this is obviously embarrassing, but drugs helped me kind of lower my inhibitions, I guess you could say. Here I am on this parking structure on the side of the ledge, and I was screaming, "Help! Help! I have just been trafficked. Someone is chasing me, and they're right behind me. Help! Get this man away from me. Help!" I just kept repeating that over and over until someone heard me. And I remember this weird feeling. There were cars coming in and out of the parking structure, and I thought people were leaving the parking structure and hurrying up and getting into their cars because they wanted to get away from whatever was happening in their building. In reality, they could have just been getting in their cars and going to work. Who knows? But it felt so internal. No residents or anything came out to help me. But I called enough. Who knows if it's because the police station was right next door, but a police officer pulled up. And it was a female. And I unfortunately knew her from 2 years prior when I was surprisingly like drugged a different time right after my divorce, but that's a whole other scenario. So I had met this woman before, and she looks at me and she's like, "Oh, you again." And I'm like, that's not a good start. And I told her the situation and what happened to me. And I said, "Look, I'm like 5 blocks away from my house. This is what just happened to me. I need to get home to my cat, and I need to keep myself safe. I need to make sure I'm okay, because I'm not okay right now. I just want to go home and see my cat." "Okay, come on, get in the back of the cop car. We'll take you to your house." I said, thank you. That's all I want. That's all I want to do. Just be home safe." So we start driving. And I noticed the drive seems a little bit longer than half a mile away. And I'm like getting confused. We should be at my apartment by now. Why am I not down the street to my apartment? She didn't take me to my apartment. She took me to a detainment center, which is what I guess you could call a mental hospital. I call them a detainment center, because the difference to me is a detainment center is where you take drug addicts, homeless people, criminals that you're not charging, the bottom of the barrel, anyone that's having an episode, a crisis. Believe it or not, immigrants were in there just because they were immigrants. This is a place where people go to rot. It's right in between a hospital and jail, but they have kind of symptoms of both, because you can't leave, you are stuck there, and they can say you're in there for 42 to 72 hours, but you're there for a week.
This sounds like where you are placed when, by a legal definition, you are in danger of harming yourself or harming another person, and the law enforcement can participate, but it can participate and place you there to protect other people and yourself. They have a number for this. I think it's 250. I can't remember the number. 256. I think it's this number. I'm incorrect about that one.
50 to 50.
Well, they can come. They can probably
something like
people
that.
can come up with the bottom with the exact number, but there is a number that is assigned or classification for that kind of situation. But you didn't display
But
that behavior.
unfortunately, that's not always the case. Victims of people that have been hurt also get sent there. The problem is there's no investigation. They don't put you in a room. They don't ask you a bunch of questions. They don't take a recording of detailed notes. They just look at you, profile you, dump you in there.
Okay, and that's where you find yourself in that moment, and assuming for 72 hours for the holdup.
They say they're supposed to put you in there for 72 hours.
Okay.
But that's not actually what happens. I ended up being there for a week.
Okay.
In fact, I don't think anyone stays there. They say on paper it's only a 72-hour hold. Everyone's there for a week.
Interesting.
I got no phone calls. My parents put out a missing persons report on me. They called every single district, every single Long Beach district. Where's Simona? Who's Simona? This is a picture of Simona. Where's Simona? And every single police station. We don't know who Simona is. We don't have any recollection of Simona. Well, the cops are the ones that brought me in. Of course, they know who I was, but they didn't tell my family. So for 1 week, my family was terrified.
Okay. Well, so we start with you um, being at home and then find yourself with substances that sort of set a train wreck or a bunch of things to happen, and now you are in a way incarcerated beyond 72 hours. So here, as you're giving yourself this identity to protect yourself, um, and giving you the anonymity by Simona, um, we kind of reach a little bit of the end of our interview, at least the first part of it. So we're gonna catch up on the next one that we'll do. But again, Simone, I wanted to um, thank you for being willing to share your story and being so vulnerable, uh, and yet at the same time try to protect yourself, by um, the way that again centuries ago the same way that has been done in Venice. And I have to keep saying that because I have to explain why is she wearing this fancy outfit. She could have just thrown a sock over her head, but this is there is actual tradition by the Masquerade that wears the fancy uh, big Italian looking seat that she's sitting on, or the background. It all has to do with that. And so when we explain to Simona that there is some traditions or in some ways that people can open themselves and do things that wouldn't conventionally do without a masquerade. She jumped at the chance, and that's what she's doing. So again, Simona, will have you again on the next part of your story. But I want to thank you again for being with us, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for having me.